A 7.8 magnitude earthquake just tore through the southern Philippines, and it ruptured the exact stretch of seafloor that killed as many as 8,000 people the last time it moved. The footage coming out of Mindanao is devastating. In General Santos, a city of 720,000 people, multi-story buildings folded into the street. A 4-story commercial building came down with people still inside it. 60 kilometers away, an entire mountainside let go and buried homes in the town of Glan. By Tuesday, the confirmed death toll had climbed past 40. More than 450 people were injured. Roughly 2,000 homes and 117 government buildings damaged. A tsunami pushed into the coast. Aftershocks as strong as magnitude 6.5 kept hitting for hours. And all of it started at 7:37 in the morning on the first day of school, while children stood in their courtyard for the flag-raising ceremony. But here is the detail that tells the real story. This earthquake came from the Cotabato Trench, the same fault system that ruptured beneath the Moro Gulf in 1976 and produced the deadliest tsunami in Philippine history. That wave stood 9 meters tall. It reached shore in 2 to 5 minutes. It killed thousands of people before most of them ever woke up. This time, the tsunami measured 1 meter. And the difference between 1 meter and 9 meters had almost nothing to do with warning systems. It had nothing to do with preparation. It came down to how deep the rock broke, which means the one thing that protected this coast on Monday is the exact thing nobody can count on next time this fault lets go. This is how it happened. At 7:37 in the morning on Monday, June 8th, the seabed roughly 20 kilometers off the coast of Sarangani province lurched. The U.S. Geological Survey put the magnitude at 7.8. Within seconds, the shaking reached General Santos. Within minutes, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center had issued alerts, and FIVLX was telling everyone on the southern coast to move to higher ground immediately. By mid-morning, the first buildings were confirmed down. By the afternoon, the tsunami threat had passed, and the warnings were lifted, but the ground had not gone quiet. A string of aftershocks rolled through over the next 2 hours. The largest measured magnitude, 6.5. Each one sent rescue crews stumbling back from the rubble they were trying to dig through. The shaking was felt as far away as Mindanao, on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, more than 420 kilometers from the epicenter. A magnitude 7.8 does not stay local. To understand why this earthquake matters beyond the headline, you have to understand what caused it. The Philippines sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, the arc of fault lines and volcanoes circling the entire ocean. But the specific structure that broke on Monday is called the Cotabato Trench. It runs along the southwestern edge of Mindanao, just offshore. A trench is where one slab of the Earth's crust is being forced down underneath another. The plates do not slide past each other smoothly. They lock. They bend. They store decades of strain like a spring being slowly compressed. When the lock finally fails, the upper plate snaps back and shoves everything above it, including the entire column of seawater on top. That shove is what makes a tsunami. And here's the part that should keep you up at night. The Cotabato Trench sits almost directly against the coastline. There are no hundreds of miles of open ocean for a wave to cross. When this fault generates a tsunami, it does not take hours to arrive. It arrives in 2 to 5 minutes. There is no realistic warning window. By the time an alert lights up a phone, the water is already at the door. That is exactly what happened in 1976. The fault ruptured just after midnight while the entire coast was asleep. The seabed heaved upward, and a wall of water up to 9 meters high swept more than 700 kilometers of shoreline. The tsunami, not the shaking, caused roughly 85% of deaths. Monday's earthquake was nearly as powerful, but it broke deeper, more than 30 kilometers down inside the slab. A deeper rupture lifts the seafloor less. Less lift means a smaller wave. That one variable, depth, is most of the reason the coast saw 1 meter of water instead of 9. Read that again. The thing that decided whether dozens died or thousands died was not anything anyone built, planned, or controlled. It was the depth of a crack in the ocean floor. And even at 1 meter, the wave did not stay put. 83 centimeters registered on a gauge off Sulawesi. 30 centimeters in Palau. Ripples 20 centimeters high reached the coastline of southern Japan. That is a single earthquake pushing measurable waves onto 3 other nations. And it was still the small version of what this trench can do. Numbers do not collapse on people. Buildings do. In General Santos, that 4-story building with a grocery store on the ground floor came down in seconds. Rescue crews pulled 2 people out alive. A third was found dead. By Tuesday, scanners had picked up no further signs of life. Das Linda DeVio waited outside the rubble for word about her son. She said it was difficult to accept that he was still trapped inside, and that all she wanted was to have him brought out so the family could have peace. Jojo Kalma was 44 years old, driving past a building when it collapsed directly in front of him. He said it was the first time he had ever felt shaking so strong that he could not stop himself from crying, and that all he could think about were his children. East of the city, in the town of Melita, more than 100 students and a dozen teachers had gathered for the flag-raising ceremony. It was their first day back after a 2-month summer break. The shaking hit while they stood in formation. Their principal said the excitement of the first day turned to trauma in an instant. Most students stayed seated and still. That stillness is a large part of the reason none of them were hurt. At a hospital where the building itself was no longer safe to enter, doctors set up tents in a parking lot under the open sky and kept working. In one of those tents, they helped a young mother give birth. Here is what makes this more than a single terrible morning. This was not a freak event. It was the latest entry in a pattern. Just 8 months ago, a magnitude 6.9 earthquake struck off the central island of Cebu and killed 79 people, the deadliest tremor the country had seen in over a decade. The Philippines absorbs around 20 typhoons every year. By almost any measure, it is one of the most disaster-exposed nations on the planet. But the Cotabato Trench is its own specific threat. It has ruptured before. It will rupture again. The cities that have grown along that coast since 1976, General Santos chief among them, are far larger today than they were then. More people, more concrete, more buildings standing between the population, and a fault that offers no warning time at all. General Santos is now under a state of calamity. Roughly 2,000 homes and 117 government buildings are damaged or destroyed. Fivolks confirmed this was the strongest earthquake to strike the Philippines this year. Wire agencies are calling it the most powerful to hit the country since 1976. The fault that did the most damage in living memory just reminded everyone it is still fully loaded. The tsunami warnings are lifted. The airport is closed. 6,000 school buildings sit empty and unchecked while engineers inspect them one structure at a time. Families who lost everything are sleeping in vacant lots and parking lot tents. And the ground is still moving. The aftershocks have not stopped. Each one sends the crews in General Santos stepping back from the rubble, waiting for it to settle, then climbing back in. Somewhere off the coast of Sarangani, more than 30 kilometers down, the slab that broke on Monday is resettling into its new position. The trench that has killed thousands before is exactly where it has always been. And it is not finished.